My name is Sachin Bhagchandani, and I'm a postdoctoral fellow at the Yale School of Medicine. My current research goals in immunology focus on vaccine research. In my Ph.D. research, I worked on HIV vaccines and the importance of kinetics in terms of how often do you need to administer the vaccine and how that can change the antibody as well as the memory response. So we found that if you extend the dosing of the vaccine for up to 2 weeks, it significantly improves the antibody responses as a consequence of the germinal center reaction. Since then, I've now transitioned into my postdoctoral work where I'm focused on mucosal vaccines, wherein, as we've seen with the SARS-CoV-2 pandemic, where we get the shots intramuscularly, we don't quite have protection in the nasal as well as the oral mucosa. And so trying to understand the mechanisms of how to protect our barrier surfaces, as well as develop more effective mucosal vaccines to complement the currently available systemic vaccines. I think in terms of vaccination being one of the most successful accomplishments of immunology in terms of preventing infectious diseases, understanding what are the mechanisms, what are we missing in terms of why haven't we been successful in making mucosal vaccines. So trying to go along those lines, because complementing the intramuscular vaccines along with mucosal vaccines might provide us protection in the context of diseases such as HIV, tuberculosis, where we don't have a successful vaccine yet. Because in a lot of contexts, when you generate antibodies in the blood, they may not traffic effectively to the sites where the virus initially infects the body. I think one aspect of my research that I've come across quite recently is trying to understand how our mucosal surfaces are connected. That was quite surprising, that it's this idea that was proposed in the 1970s or 1980s of us having a common mucosal immune system. It's not quite clear, but I found that very fascinating, that you could immunize at one site mucosally and you'd get responses at another mucosal site. Initially, I did my Ph.D. at MIT in chemical engineering and did a lot of synthetic chemistry. So my exposure to immunology was a lot lesser throughout grad school. So for me, this meeting has been incredibly informative in terms of the breadth of research, the diverse areas wherein immunology is being applied to sort of improve health outcomes. So that was very powerful for me to sort of see so many different fields going very deep into different mechanisms of how the immune response can be harnessed or even sort of tamped down in the case of autoimmune conditions. There's just very interesting research that I'm seeing in terms of how the immune system is connected to the brain, the gut-brain axis, a lot of these different and diverse research areas that weren't on my radar have now come on my radar. And so there's so many diverse roles for the immune system that I didn't quite appreciate until I've attended this meeting. I think for me, as like taking myself as an example of not having had a traditional background either in biology or immunology, one advice I would have is don't let that deter you. Like, immunology needs people from diverse fields, from different perspectives. And so even if you don't quite have the right background or education, you can pick that up. As long as you're passionate about it and understand it, you can pick up some of those, the fundamentals of immunology.